Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick Cake. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer. And today is the best day of the month. It is LMIAY time, where we go over the monthly prompt. Where last month I gave you guys a prompt. You guys responded in abundance with short story, and we're going to go over a couple of them today. Now, unfortunately, previously I tried to do at least 10 every month. If there were a minimum of, well, if there were 10, then I would try to do those 10. If I could do more, then I would do more. However, I am a one-man show here. I record and edit all of my own things to varying degrees of success, and I just can't do that many LMIAYs because it ends up with a video that takes about 6 to 8 hours to complete. And it's a lot. So I'm going to have to cut it down. May or may not do as many as possible, but I got to survive. I hope you understand. And I'm sorry that I can't include everything that gets submitted every month, but I appreciate and I hope that you guys continue working on your stories, be inspired, and work hard. With that said, before we get started, a couple of things. Number one, if you enjoy what I do here on the channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number two, if you would like to be featured maybe next month, check out the links down in the description below. LMIAY for next month is now available for your inspirational goodness. Seep in the prompt, absorb the prompt, become the prompt, live the prompt. You are the prompt. And then next month, we'll get together again and read it like we're going to do today. The second way to be featured here is through the Fresh Meat feature, where if you're an author, an indie author, and you've got a book out or a book that is coming out, submit your first chapter and your cover, and they will be read here on the channel at a random interval to hopefully help more readers find your work. The third thing is, if you would like to check out any of my books, they're available down in the description below, with the third Bodymore book coming out in October. You can get them also at your favorite libraries and anywhere that you get books. So please check those out. Enjoy. Cry, don't cry. It is up to you. With that said, let's jump into it. So the prompt this month has to do with a wonderful friend of the channel, the owner, CEO, sponsorer, man of manners and parties, TATTERMASH mascot, T. Alex Radcliffe. And so this month, if you want to get a little more into this, go over to his channel. I'll link it down below. I'll also link it at the end of this video. Check out his TATTERMASH employment video. He's got a sense of humor. Subscribe to him. And this month, it is a story that is an advertisement. I'm having a little too much TATTERMASH, so that's the thing. Advertisement or contains an advertisement for TATTERMASH, the best alternative to vodka. Or perhaps has something to do with the TATTERMASH. The first story is by Mae Tanner. A hand grabbed Alba by the ankle. She stumbled and nearly fell before the lax grip that let her go. Drawing her knife, she whirled to see a ragged man lying among the rubbish on the side of the road. His eyes bulged from their sockets. "Please," the stranger whispered. The man's eyes rolled back into his head. He shuddered and lay still. Still clasping her knife, Alba examined the man's body. He wasn't breathing and had no pulse. Wildly, she glanced around. No one was near. She shoved a box in front of the body to hide it and scurried away. Her heart pounded in her chest by the time she made it home, and she opened the door with a trembling hand. Once inside, she slammed the door shut and leaned against it with her eyes closed, panting. Was there a working camera on that street? Did the camera record her interactions with the stranger? More important, had the man been diseased or merely poisoned? She shuddered at the thought of disease. "Ali, are you all right? Ali, are you all right?" Her eyes snapped open. Her roommate, Sierre, stood before her. Behind Sierre, the living room was full of people. Against the walls, images flickered silently across their video screens, showing a commercial for TATTERMASH liqueur. "No, a man tried to grab me on the street where the cameras don't work." I hope the cameras on the street don't work. Sierre wrapped her arms around Alba and escorted her to the couch. She kicked the legs of the man seated on it. Move. Allie needs to sit down. He jumped up and sat on the low table in front of the couch, shoving a bottle of tater mash to one side to make room. What happened? She looks like a wreck. He pulled a roll of wafers from his pocket and tipped one into his palm. The two women sat on the couch. Sierra grabbed the bottle of tater mash and handed it to Alba. Drink. It'll settle your nerves. She turned back to the man. Someone assaulted her. The man popped the wafer into his mouth. That's too bad. Hey, want a wafer? They're fresh. I got them this morning. He offered Alba the roll. Alba took a swig straight from the bottle, set the bottle on the floor beside the couch, and accepted the roll of wafers. Her hand shook as she tipped it, and several wafers spilled onto her palm. Her cheeks burned red as she shoved them back into the roll. The man made a choking sound. Alba's cheeks burned a brighter red. Sorry. The man slumped and tumbled to the floor. Sierra jumped up and knelt beside him. Shale, what the hell? He lifted his head. His eyes bulged into their sockets. Can't breathe. Alba dropped the wafers and dug her communicator from her satchel. She punched the number in for emergency services. Shale's symptoms reminded her of the man on the street. As she waited for an answer, she grabbed the bottle of tater mash and drank deep. The other people in the apartment filed out of the room. One girl stopped by the couch. I'm sorry. You understand, don't you? Alba nodded. Go on. Get out of here. Sierra monitored Shale's condition while they waited for help to arrive. As the minutes passed, her face took on a strained look. How long before they get here? Alba shook her head. They said 20 minutes. She guzzled more tater mash from the bottle. It seemed to take forever before the door opened and the emergency medics rushed inside. One knelt beside Shale and took his vitals. Did you find him like this? Sierra shook her head. He took a wafer shortly before he collapsed. She gestured at the wafers spilled on the floor. My roommate was about to take one, but dropped them when she called for help. Another responder scooped up the wafers, placing them in a sealed bag. We'll test these to see if there's something wrong with them. The medics started working on Shale. In quick order, they shifted him onto the stretcher and took him out of the apartment. The first medic turned to Alba and Sierra. You two need to come to the hospital. The women nodded and followed the medics out of the apartment before climbing into the ambulance. Alba glanced around. A billboard mounted on the building across the street flashed an advertisement for tater mash. This is wonderful. There's also an author's note in here. I just gotta say, Alex, inspiring people up in here. It says, this is from my current work in progress. I'd originally planned on making the bottle of liquor generic. When I incorporated the writing prompt, I decided to make tater mash vodka significant to the story. So inspiring people, tater mash is spreading. How amazing would it be if there was just like this string of totally unrelated novels that all used the same made up versions of things, like a loosely connected universe, but really the connected universe is just the authors that know each other. The tension in the scene was really good. I was really invested and interested in the building of the mystery of what was happening here, of leading into the party. There's a great pace to this piece. I wanted more, May. I hope your story goes well I hope your story goes well as you're working on it. The next story is by Egao Chan, called Tater Cleanse. He didn't remember how he got here. He just woke up in a cold, empty, and slightly dusty bathtub in a spacious but obviously under-maintained bathroom. He barely recognized the man in the mirror, probably not because the mirror was broken and had more to do with the blurry visions. There were tears, stains, and burn marks on his clothes. He forgot what happened. The only thing that brought him some solace was the cool bottle of clear liquid by the tub, with fingerprints on its neck. The mark on the bottle suffered heavy scratches and burns. All he could make out was the letter TAT. He popped it open. It was alcohol, strong one as well. Maybe it was the reason that he was here. He knew not what it was, yet he knew that if he wanted to leave, he must remember its name. Outside the bathroom was a dim, empty hallway inside of an abandoned building. He looked both ways, still had no idea from which direction he came. He ventured some distance into both, left and right. Both were strange to him. The walls and pillars were covered in dust, dark stains, and dark handprints. Random garbage covered the ground. There were no windows, only small round holes on higher up, unreachable places, providing barely any airflow. Scratching sounds tore through the air still. Sharp metal, concrete walls, chills ran through his entire body, and he began running to the left. There were faded parking spots on the side, and a dusty moped by the corner in front of him. Giggles, whispers, and faint cries seeped between the grinding scratches. He could not make out what they said. Only run. 2 turns. He made it into another narrow driveway. Same faded parking spots. Heavy, frantic tire marks on the ground gave off enough burnt smells to make him tear up. Slap, slap. Wet and heavy footsteps came from closely above. He looked up. Creatures made of flowing and rippling dark tar-like liquid, each with 5 or 6 long legs, with human hands at the end, and a pale face that was moving across the body like a mask floating in crude oil. "Mash! Drinker!" the creature moaned, its lips barely moving. "Mash! Drinker! Mash! Drinker!" The other creatures repeated, their legs curled, ready to lunge. Fire exit on the right. He launched himself at the heavy doors and bashed them open. The creature landed behind him just when the doors swung back shut. Upstairs, he ran still with the bottle of alcohol in his hand. "Mash! Drinker! Mash! Drinker!" he pounded as he rushed upwards. It resonated. He did not know why yet. Something glowed in his hand. It was his bottle. Bang! He rushed out of the staircase, 1 floor above. A foul, dark creature with 2 hollowed eyes and purple strips on its body was right there to greet him. Like a sentient piece of rubber or a glob of carnivorous gel with a mouthful of crooked fangs, it expanded and tried to wrap him into a cocoon. He flinched and lifted his arm in defense and was immediately met with a deafening screech. No attack came. Instead, the soft light glow from the bottle seemed to have kept the blob creature at bay. It dared not approach him, but did not want to leave him alone either. "Back off! Back off!" He thrust the bottle forward, driving the creature back as he looked around. This seemed to be an abandoned shopping mall. Run-down, empty shops with broken or completely missing billboards stood on both sides of the hallway. This blob creature was not the only one lurking behind almost every broken window, every door. There was a moving shadow, murmuring, moaning, and calling to him. There was a distant light at the end of the hallway. There was no telling if it was an exit, but it was the only source of light in this forsaken place. He swung the bottle around as he moved toward the light, trying to use the glow to repel all that was coming at him. "Mash! Drinker!" Just when he thought that he was making good progress, a slow, throaty, and gurgling moan snuck up behind him. He turned, but the thing was fast. A spiked tentacle knocked him onto the ground, leaving a bloody gash on his chest. He tried to struggle up, but the massive body of dark creature, one made of scallop-like abductor muscles wrapped around by tentacles, hopped on his chest. A sharp spike poked through the tentacle, aiming at his mouth. "Mash! Drinker!" The creature's spike moved closer and closer, hard as he tried. He could not get away. His last bit, or droplet, of chance of survival was in the glowing bottle. Popping open the bottle with his right thumb, his right arm shot to his face and splashed the alcoholic liquid all over his jaws, nose, and mouth. There was a moment of silence before the creature screamed and backed away from his body. His face turned stern. His body began to glow gently, just like the bottle. All of the dark creatures waiting to pounce on him cowered in fear. He stood up, barely conscious, yet full of power. The tentacle creature tried to slip away, but was instantly ripped to shreds by his bare hands. "Its name," he growled every word, "is TATTERMASH." Other creatures cried and screamed, but the gentle light emitting from the man's body pinned them where they were, like spikes with insurmountable weight. He walked over, step by step, and tore all of the creatures apart, one by one, even one creature that was completely made of smoke. When he was at the door to the bright outside, he, glowing, powered up, hesitated. He remembered why he came: to cleanse the darkness, to annihilate the evil that dwelled here, all in the name of Mas Newton, in the name of TATTERMASH. That is a commercial worth making for this alcohol. Egao Chan, you should be in advertising if you're not in advertising, because who would not want to be this guy? Let's be real here. Who does not want to be the vanquisher of evil in the name of TATTERMASH? TATTERMASH is going to be bigger than Red Bull. I'm telling you that much. The next story is by Jim Terry. Squeaking steel and screaming youngsters surrounded Thomas from every angle. Every sound confined itself within the playground's chain-link fence, despite having the open air to travel. To make matters worse, the summer air was thick and humid when Thomas's 6-year-old daughter Haley ran up to him, drenched in her own sweat, and hopefully only that. Her thin blonde hair clung to her neck and face. From when it fell from the ponytail holder, Thomas didn't know how to fix properly, according to his ex-wife. "I'm thirsty," Haley said, breathing through her mouth. The pink fabric of her sassy little lassie t-shirt darkened across her heaving chest. Thomas typically took Haley to the ice cream stand to cool off, but the park was crowded on this particular day in hell. All of the kiosks were full. All but one. TATTERMASH read the sign in large orange letters, as if it were attempting to match the volume of children nearby. Haley looked desperate, and the last thing Thomas needed was for his daughter to complain to his ex that he didn't help her when she needed it. Dehydration was no doubt on the list of offenses Thomas could commit to lose his rights to see Haley, and the vendor looked friendly enough. "Ah, what the heck," Thomas said, while grabbing Haley's wrist. The vendor's smile beamed brighter as Thomas approached with his soggy daughter. "So, what is this?" Thomas asked. "It's TATTERMASH," said the vendor with his arms spread. "Here are a couple of samples, the newest drink on the block." He passed one small paper cup to each Thomas and Haley. Thomas took one sip and immediately spat it out. "Again? What is this?" he exclaimed, louder, before realizing Haley also had a cup that was inching closer to her lips before he slapped it out of her hand. Her mouth opened wide. Thomas was almost afraid that her jaw would dislocate. Another offense on his ex's list. "TATTERMASH is the best alternative to," the vendor started, before mouthing the word. "Yeah, I guessed," Thomas said. His heart was pounding at the thought of a vendor in a children's playground selling alcohol to them. "You realize that she's 6, right?" Thomas aggressively pointed to his child, who was still appalled. No, you don't understand. TATTERMASH contains none of the alcohol contents of real vodka." The vendor mouthed the last word again. "But contains all of its lovely flavors." He held eye contact with Thomas as he passed Haley another free sample. Thomas reluctantly let him. "No one enjoys that for its flavor." The vendor raised his eyebrow and tilted his head twice toward Haley, who was already reaching toward the countertop with her empty paper cup. "Aw, she still looks mighty thirsty," the vendor said in an infantile tone, this time looking at Haley and nodding. Haley's face pleaded to Thomas, who was happy now that no one actually said the word vodka in her presence to avoid another strike against him. "I'll take 3 bottles," Thomas said quietly, his eyes averting from everyone. "Perfect! That'll be $30. $30? Okay, I'll tell you what. Because you are the first customer of the day and your daughter is the best little saleswoman ever, I'll cut your price in half." Outrageous. But the crowds surrounding the other kiosks were only growing. Thomas looked behind him to see if anyone else was in line for TATTERMASH. No one. He sighed and slid 3 $5 bills across the counter in exchange for 3 thin bottles that, in fact, had non-alcoholic sprayed across the bottles just as obnoxiously as the product's lettering. Still, before Haley could run off and embarrass him for drinking this in front of the children and parents of the park, Thomas placed his hand in hers, walked her to the white Silverado parked in the gravel lot, and strapped her into her car seat. As he waited for his truck to cool off, he looked into the rearview mirror and smiled at his little girl in the back seat, playing with the plastic ring that detached itself from the drink's lid. With the air conditioner blasting wafting a cool breeze across Thomas's face, he started to take his daughter home to spend the rest of his weekend with his number one girl, but not before making a stop at the local grocery store for a bottle of cranberry juice. Aw, that was cute. Having a nice little father-daughter moment, Jim. That was great. And caring about his daughter and non-alcoholic. You know, I went to an alcohol store for the first time in years while I was on break, not to get alcohol. I actually got a pop, which I shouldn't have done, but I still did. And they had non-alcohol, like a whole non-alcoholic section too that was non-alcoholic beer. I was going to say non-alcoholic alcohol so that you'd know that it's not like the soda that was in the front, but you know what I mean. The next story is by Moll B. The title is The Atrocity. It's weekday morning, which means the mall is mostly empty and things are slow. It's when I spot the pair of giggling leprechauns coming from the direction of the food court that I put my guard up. I've never dealt with leprechauns during my tenure as a security guard before, but I've heard that they can be heaps of trouble. They exchange nods and saunter up to me, wearing friendly smiles. "Mornin', officer. How's Chicotin?" the blonde one says, tipping his hat in greeting. I give a silent nod in return, unsure if engaging in conversation with them will invite trouble. He presses on anyway. "Long shift?" I shrug, immensely suspicious of this interaction. "No longer than usual." The other leprechaun, one with a bald spot and a mischievous glint in his eye, hasn't said a word. They both just continue smiling at me. Can I help you, sirs?" "Oh, the real question is, can we help you? You must be knackering for protecting this whole mall all day. You look like you need a pick-me-up, something refreshing, something flavorful. And to celebrate our first day in partnership with this shopping mall's frozen beverage establishment, allow us to make a recommendation." I hadn't heard of the Smoothie Shack taking on any new vendors. I often patronize a place since even vampires need some variety in their diets, and I'm a sucker for fruit. I'll throw these entrepreneur Irishmen a bone in that case. Maybe whatever they're supplying is good. I check my watch. "I'm done in a few minutes. Maybe I'll grab something. What have you got?" That alone made their day. The leprechauns exchanged a thrilled glance and launched into a prepared sales pitch that I can tell that they've been dying to try out on someone. "You've heard of fruit smoothies," the bald leprechaun started. "And vanilla-flavored milkshakes, chocolate-flavored, caramel coffee. It's all the same. It's been done to death," the other pipes in. "So we decided to shake up the menu, take something ancient and beloved internationally and do something completely new with it. Our creation has all of the fun and refreshing flavors of the frozen drink and all of the nutritional benefits and antioxidant of its primary ingredient. Pure class, if you ask me." The blonde one stepped closer. "You've had it mashed, you've had it scalloped, you've had it roasted, toasted, and fried. But you haven't had it frozen and blended. Well, we're here to fix that problem with our brand spanking new dessert, the TATTERMASH." I blink. You made milkshake out of potatoes. You made it potato flavored." Suddenly, I lose my desire to get a shake once I punch out. What they're describing sounds vile. "Bang on," Baldy nods. "We had an excess of them following and..." He and his companion exchanged an uncomfortable glance. "Incident. We experimented." I arch a brow. "I see. You sound disappointed, officer. I have you know that TATTERMASH is the most tantalizing tuber-based beverage to ever grace your taste buds. I dare say it's the best drink on the planet to come from potatoes." No way that's true. I narrow my eyes at the two salesmen. My response comes as one word, curt and gruff. "Blasphemy." The leprechauns stare at me, surprised. "Pardon, sir." "You heard me. You can't go around blending potatoes and ice and claiming it'll be best potato drink when the vodka exists. Absolutely not. Niet, niet, niet. You cannot upstage vodka. It's been around hundreds of years. Longer than I have, mind you. The craft has been perfected. The drink has been perfected. Your cold, watery mashed potato are no competition for only good, no, only legitimate potato drink, courtesy of Motherland, your TATTERMASH cannot hold candle to the ancient and perfect. I reckon that if we did hold a candle to vodka, you'd be left with a big fire, no more vodka, and our TATTERMASH still standing. That sounds like a challenge. My voice is stern and unforgiving. I was suspicious of these leprechauns before, but now that they've taken the things too far, this is an insult. An insult to me, to potatoes, to milkshakes, probably also to Russia. What maniac makes a potato-flavored milkshake? Absolute insanity. Maybe it is, boyo. The blonde leprechaun hops onto the shoulders of his companion and stares me down, now at my eye level. We challenge you to give up your drinks and lash and see if the glorious and illustrious TATTERMASH can't change your mind. Deal. He hops down, and we head to the counter, the leprechaun looking smug the whole way there. I pull my food and smoothie pass out of my wallet and hand it to the cashier. 1 TATTERMASH, please. Sure. What size? Extra large! Blondie interjects before I can say small, but I don't plan to come off as the coward and correct the order, so extra large it is. I give her a small nod. Well, you're brave. That's not reassuring in this context. I eye the leprechauns as the cashier grabs a 36-ounce cup and heads on to the filling machine. Baldy rocks confidently on his heels. Blondie stands on his tiptoes so that he can look at the cashier as she fills the cup. Her lips crinkle into a grimace as thick white puree falls into the plastic vessel with successive wet plops. Steam rises from it. I give the leprechauns a look. I thought you said this was cold drink. Ha! Semantics. That doesn't make any. Wind your neck in. This is the best part, Blondie says, and does a little hop to get a better view. We follow his gaze. The cashier takes what appears to be whipped cream can and squirts a serving of what smells like a butter on top of the beverage. Next, she drizzles warm gravy on that and tops the entire abomination off with a sprinkle of hash browns. When she pops the lid on and pushes the straw to the bottom of the drink, it looks like a normal shake, at least. I still take it with a note of reluctance. The leprechauns watch, eyes aglow with excitement as I try their god-forsaken concoction. The cup is grossly warm in my hand. The drink is thick and crawls slowly up the straw. After some fighting with it, I finally gulp some down. I let it settle for a second. This is just mashed potatoes, I say. All you did was put mashed potatoes in the cup. Aye, better than vodka, Blondie says. Yet. Oh, what? You put mashed potato in cup and call it milkshake. It's warm and almost too thick to drink. Anyone who gets it expecting milkshake will think it's disgusting. Oh, I honestly don't know what you're expecting. Does this have to do with your mall vampire story, Moll B? Also go check out her blog for real. It's linked down in the description below. She's got a whole series going. She also does book reviews, but also check out her series on Mall Cop Vampire. The last story is by R.S. Alessi. Ernie stumbled across the stiff while he was raking leaves in the middle of the woods. Raking leaves in the woods was about as dumb a job as a man could do, and he reckoned that Tom made him do it to get him out of the shed. He didn't argue. He'd rather rake leaves than watch Tom get drunk. But it did lead to the unfortunate discovery. The dead man lay flat on his stomach. He was hatless and wearing a flannel t-shirt, denim pants, and suspenders. Pretty much the same clothes Ernie had on right now. Except Ernie didn't have 2 holes in his back. A stain wide and brown as the Shenandoah ran down the man's shirt and jeans into his work boots. Poor feller must have walked a long way before he keeled over. Hey, Tom. There's a dead man out here behind the old shed. No, there ain't. Tom's voice came from the direction of the new shed. Stop bothering me. I got work to do. You ain't done shit but drink. Get over here. I think that we should call the cops. A rattle of tin, a thump, a mutter, and a muttered shit, and Tom came around to the side of the old shed. That's a body. I told you. This fella been murdered. Someone shot him in the back. I don't want the same to happen to me while I'm out here raking leaves all alone. Nobody's gonna shoot you, boy. You're as harmless as a fly. How do you know this fella weren't harmless? Maybe it was an Indian that done him. Ernie didn't know much about Indians, but Grandpa was always blaming them when something bad happened. You think Mike shot him? What's Mike got to do with it? His ma's Cherokee. He's the only Indian round these parts. Ernie said. Probably wasn't Mike. He's real good with a shotgun. If he fixed to kill someone, they'd be dead before they realized it. Tom nodded sagely. Well, we can't go inviting the cops over to have her a look-see. This here's an illegal distilling operation. We gotta do something with him. We'll bury him. But he's got a mama. She'll be missing him. Ernie's mama was always scolding him for not calling on her more than once every Sunday. He's a grown man. His mama don't care about him no more. He might have a wife. With his foot, Ernie nudged the dead man's left hand free of his body. Look here, he's got a ring. Better roll him over and see what it is. Ernie'd been so excited about finding the dead body, he'd forgotten it probably belonged to someone he knew. He pushed it onto its back and stared down at Mike's lifeless face. Huh, Tom said finally. Guess it weren't Mike that shot him. Ernie wrung his hands. Who we gonna buy our potatoes from now? The boss will figure that out. Come on, get him in the ground. After you're done, we'll tell his missus what happened. You don't think that she should decide where he was buried? What part of illegal distilling operation don't you understand? We'll tell her that we saw him floating down the river while we was fishing, and we couldn't get him out on account of the current. Ernie pursed his lips. Fish for dinner would be nice. I didn't say we was going fishing. It's a nice day for fishing. It's a nice day for digging. Get to work. Ernie was used to digging. The boss had gotten into a lot of trouble with the law over the years, and he'd come up with a clever way to hide the stills, burying them. The above-ground shed that they'd built so the cops had something to look at when they came out for a raid. The above-ground shed that they'd built so the cops had somewhere to look at when they came out for a raid. Ernie started digging, and Tom stood nearby, jawing about how he fell off the barn when he was 12, and now his back hurt. The hole got deep, and Ernie tried to think of something nice to say about Mike. All he knew about Mike was that his property backed up on his boss's land, and it was a bad idea to wander over on account of him being a crack shot, and every fall he traded his busted-up taters for a barrel of tater mash. Did you know that Mike was married? Never heard of no wedding? Guess it weren't a local girl that he married. Tom tried to kick the body into the grave, but it was too heavy for kicking. Ernie grabbed it by the shoulders and rolled it over the edge. The body thumped softly when it hit the bottom. After Ernie filled the hole, they set out for Mike's farm. The sun had dropped into the hollow of the New Market Gap, and the doves were cooing. Ernie missed his dinner, so he unshouldered his shotgun. Don't even think about it, Tom said. Those doves remained unshot. They cleared the woods and trudged through Mike's muddy potato field toward the gray farmhouse that might have been white 50 years ago. Chickens scattered before them. A hound on the porch lifted its head and gave a lazy "Arr!" Tom hopped up on the front step and squinted through the screen door. Ma'am? Hello, ma'am? We got a word about your husband. Ernie didn't think Tom was going to go into this conversation right, but he didn't want to do it, so he kept his mouth shut. A silhouette appeared at the door, backlit by a lamp inside. Ernie sucked in sharply. Mike's widow had all the parts a woman ought to have, in all of the right proportions. Tom pulled off his hat. Ma'am, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but your husband is dead. The woman gave a muffled yelp. Tom plowed on. We saw his body in the river when we was fishing. It floated on right past. I figure it's halfway to Front Royal by now. Oh, no! She put her hands on her heart. What should I do? I reckon that you should be careful, ma'am, Ernie said. He peered at her. A fading bruise marked her cheek, swelling to purple around her left eye. Mike had a couple of holes in him. His killer might be lurking about. Tom elbowed him hard. The woman stepped outside, where Ernie could see her better. She was thin, and her dress hung loose in a way that made him think that maybe it used to fit her better. She licked her lips and stared at him. Sitting in this house all alone is enough to frighten anyone, and now you're telling me someone out there's going to murder me? Ernie wrung his hands. An invitation hung in her words, but he couldn't figure out what she was asking for. Tom stepped in front of him. Don't worry, ma'am. I'll stay the night. The woman turned to Tom. I don't want to trouble you, sir. It was likely an accident. Now that I think about it, Mike was drunker than Cooter Brown when he stepped outside yesterday, swinging that shotgun around and swearing that he was going to shoot me a rabbit for supper. Maybe. But you said it yourself. It ain't safe in a big house all alone. Tom turned to Ernie. You head back, boy. I'll see you in the morning. Ernie tramped down the steps, across the field, and into the woods. Dusk hadn't quite faded tonight, and he spotted them, doves cooing in branches overhead. He took aim at them. His finger froze on the trigger. Mike would have loaded a shotgun with number 6 to hunt the rabbit, not slugs, like what killed him. And he couldn't have nailed himself in the back anyhow. Ernie thought of the young widow with her bruised face, and Tom, who probably was helping himself to Mike's barrel of tater mash right now. Son of a bitch deserves what he gets, Ernie muttered, and trudged back to camp. Is she that much of a black widow? Is she that much? See, this is what people kind of forget when they think about, there was no divorce at a certain time. Yes, but there was still murder. There was great chemistry and great movement in this. I am forever surprised at the types of stories that are submitted that are inspired by, even when they don't quite fit the prompt, but still they obviously take something from the prompt. So thank you everybody for submitting. Thank you for everybody that was featured today. If the author was featured today and they submitted links to where you can find more of their work, it will be listed down in the description below. Check them out. If you like them, let me know what your favorite story was. And with that said, thank you so much for hanging out. Have a great week. Happy August. Good luck and don't die.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out?
The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross. Is he in trouble? We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him.
Cross isn't a killer. For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die. Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Way. Why? Did you do that? To the left, plain black letters read along the wall. You walked in the corridor. Once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry. Flickers black and black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead, Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?